Anissa, do you know what a labiaplasty is?
I actually didn't before I read this article.
Yeah, so it's a procedure where they basically cut your labia.
Yeah.
Google says labiaplasty is a cosmetic genital plastic surgery procedure that reshapes or shortens the labia minora and labia majora, the folds of skin on the vulva. And I'm crossing my legs so tight right now just thinking about that.
That sounds so painful.
Welcome to another episode of My Body, My Jokes. It's me, Morgan. I hope by now you know who I am. I'm coming to you from Dude IDK Studios in Denver. We love this place. Dude IDK is doing a lot of cool stuff. They're going to be producing a really cool comedy special soon. I'm excited to be a part of this wonderful space. I'm wearing a custom charm necklace that I made at this cool little charm bar this lady has. It's called Bronzed and something. I should have looked up the name before I shouted her out. But anyway, it's a good day to be here. I have Anissa on the ones and twos. How's it going, Anissa?
Pretty good. I am tired.
Yeah, same.
I've been working too much recently.
Oh, a working girl though.
I am a
working girl.
I don't want to be a working girl.
I know.
I don't want to.
Whenever people are like, "What's your dream job?" You're like, "I don't dream of working."
Yeah.
So that's not
stay at home.
Accurate.
Stay at home girlfriend.
Yeah. Stay at home crocheter.
Yeah.
Stay at home painter.
No babies though. Just
just dogs
home.
and cats.
Yeah.
And plants.
I'll take care of my kitty cat.
That's all of our dream.
Yeah.
Also, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, please go ahead and rate and review because that really helps the podcast get seen by other people. And I hope that those other people, can relate and maybe they're struggling and they need to hear some woman trauma dump on some episode or something. So go ahead and rate and review. 5 stars would be killer. I'll settle for 4 though. I'm going to do a little recovery corner. I guess that's what I'll call it now. Recovery corner. There's a little jingle in the background. I've been in an interesting place lately because I took a break from stand-up in April and it kind of extended a little bit into May. And I did that because I was really struggling with my recovery and I wasn't enjoying stand-up anymore. I wasn't having fun. I was kind of feeling like I wasn't funny. I was dreading going on stage. So I took a break. And now I'm in this place where I'm doing this podcast. I'm going back up on stage. I'm actively trying to get booked more, go out of town, and that sort of thing. And I'm still a little bit nervous. I'm still kind of hesitant to go full throttle and just go up every night like I used to. I think because I'm really focused on recovery. And I saw this Instagram reel yesterday it was one of those reels where it's a video of something really beautiful and then there's text over it that's really inspiring with calm music in the background. And it was a bunch of butterflies flying with a blue sky. And it said, "It's okay to rest during a storm of life. It will pass." And I was kind of oh, so maybe it's okay for me to take a break and not freak out that I'm not excelling at a rapid race in comedy. You know what I mean? I am not going to be famous tomorrow. I'm not going to get a special tomorrow. And maybe that's not my goal anyway. So that's kind of where I'm at. I also I did a therapy exercise this week. That was very fun. I was told to write a letter to my mom and I wrote an 8-page letter in a spiral notebook, a notebook that you would buy for your kid in 5th grade, one of those big ass college rule, 8 pages. I wrote a letter to my mom, read it out loud to my therapist, talked about that. So that was quite the experience. Yesterday was very heavy for me, but I'm here now. I'm sharing it now. It happens. It's part of recovery. And yeah, that's kind of what's going on with me. Anissa, what's been up with you? Just work?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really bad because I have this really weird work food balance. And so I work at a restaurant and this restaurant does have really good food. It has such good tough. Food. And sometimes it just gets so busy to where I just can't eat when I'm there. And so by the time I get off, it's already maybe like 10:30, 11, close to midnight. Yeah. And I just like want to eat. So then I stuff my face and then I go right to sleep. And then I wake up and I just feel so puffy, like my face from all the sodium. It just gets so puffy and I just like feel gross the next day.
Do they give you aren't they supposed to give you like a 30-minute break for a meal or something in your shift?
More like 10.
What?
And like only if like time allows. Because it just gets so hectic. It gets so crazy and so hectic so fast.
How long are your shifts though?
It ranges, honestly. If it's like really busy and I get in at 4:30, the place I work at on normal nights, like weeknights, they close at 10. But on a Friday and Saturday, they close at 11.
Okay.
And so if I get in at 4:30 on a Friday or Saturday, which are the busiest nights,
right,
probably wouldn't leave until
But
10,
they don't
hopefully.
give you, out of those 5-6 hours, they don't give you like a 30-minute break?
Yeah, not a 30-minute break. But like,
I feel like that's a labor law. I feel like there's something that's like if you work a certain amount of hours, you're entitled to a certain amount of minutes.
So I think it's like for the first 4 hours you work, you get 10 minutes to spare.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just too busy. And so when I do have a time to like take a break, it's just me sitting.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
because you're like on your feet.
Yeah. That's like all I need at that point. But sometimes eating is just, it's too busy to eat.
Yeah, and then it's like you have to like, I don't know if they provide you with like employee food, but it's like you have to figure out like, where am I going to eat? The kitchen's packed. I can't like get my employee meal or whatever.
And I just feel bad when I grab some of the free stuff we get.
Yeah.
Because everyone else is running around and also getting some of that stuff for the tables.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I can't win.
That's so tough. I worked at I was a waitress at a retirement home.
Oh my gosh.
And so I kind of struggled with that too, where there were days where it was so busy and there were like, maybe there was an event in the nursing home where there was something going on and I was just like working maybe even like a double and there wasn't really time for me to eat, but they would let us like order a meal if we wanted one. And it was kind of this weird balance of like, okay, I want to like allow myself to eat and sit down and rest, but I know that the other waiters are going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we need help. So man, well, I hope that there's like time for you to figure that out. Cause it is so normal for your body to want to, it's not even really overeating, just like overcompensate for what you have lost, like the energy that you've lost at the end of the night, to be like, oh my God, I haven't eaten in so many hours. Like I have to get food in, cause your body's like, what the fuck's going on? And then, you go to sleep and it kind of feels like, oh, is it just sitting in there? You know, what's going on? But something that is hopefully nice to hear. I talked to my nutritionist about this because sometimes I get home late from shows. And if I ate dinner at like 5 and then I have a show at like 8 and then I get home at like 11, by that time I'm hungry again. And I'm like, oh, can I eat again? I already ate dinner. And I asked her, I'm like, is it bad to eat and then go right to bed? And she goes, well, what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? And I go, go pee. And she goes, and what time do you usually have a bowel movement? And I was like, oh, probably like 9 or 10. And then she goes, so what do you think your metabolism is doing overnight? And I go, working. Like, she's so good at doing that kindergartner thing of like, so if we put 2 and 2 together, she's so good at doing that. So that made me feel better.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. That is nice to hear. Cause I do always worry sometimes. Cause I'm like, or just growing up in that type of environment where it's like, we're going to diet from this time to this time, or usually you can't eat from this time to this time. Or
intermittent fasting.
If you do eat between this time, you're going to wake up feeling really gross. So it's like nice to hear that my body is doing something.
Yeah, I've struggled with that a lot because a lot of my urges to like binge were always late at night because it would be, you're not eating all day, maybe you're restricting, you're doing whatever, maybe you overexercise that day, and then you're like, okay, I did it, I dieted today, but then you can't go to sleep because your body, when you don't eat enough, also can't sleep because it can't repair itself overnight if you're under eating. And then you're like, well, there's a whole box of Oreos that's calling my name.
Literally.
Let's get in on it. So I
Can't
feel
win.
that hard, girl. Oof. I
That's
also,
okay.
I had such an interesting experience this weekend. I did a show that is kind of like a comedians give advice show.
Oh.
And it was centered around mental health, but it really was not very mental health focused. And
In a good way or a bad way?
in a good way, like it was supposed to be the type of show where, you know, the audience members like submit questions and you answer them. And I think it's like a fun idea. I think
Yeah.
comedians love like riffing and being silly, but
Right.
I have a really hard time answering advice in like a funny way. And
Yeah.
like I'm not good at riffing with other comedians when there's like a topic at hand. I can do it if I'm on the mic alone, but for some reason when there's other comics around me, I get really like nervous. And I went to this show and I'm very open obviously about my eating disorder. So when the host introduced me, he's like, "Oh, this is Morgan. She has a podcast. And Morgan, you shared with me that you're in recovery from an eating disorder." And I like talked about it a little bit and the audience got really tight. And they like, no one was really like cheering or clapping or being like, "Oh, good for you." You know what I mean? And I kind of like said that. I was like, see, isn't it funny how audiences think that it's kind of scary? But if I were up here and I said I was 9 months sober, you guys would be like, "Hell yeah, good for you." And so we kind of talked about that. But it was really interesting to like kind of go up there and share a part of myself and not feel like the audience was super into it.
Yeah.
But either way, it's always good to like do other shows
Yeah.
and do stuff that's like not stand up. But that was an interesting time.
If you had your own comedy show, what would you do?
Oh my gosh. I actually, interesting you bring this up, Anissa, because I have been talking to some amazing people in my life, aka my boyfriend, and I have been thinking about doing like a quarterly women focused but not exclusively women comedy show, because I ran one earlier this year, Queens of Comedy. I don't know if you remember that. And it was really like we had a sponsor and it was really her show, but I kind of helped facilitate it. And it was like the best show.
That was a really good show.
It was so good. And I don't know if it was because the audience, who were mostly women, were just so into it. They had like come and kind of had like a little wine happy hour beforehand. All the comedians were women and every single one of them was like a killer comedian. Like they could all be headliners. And I just was like, oh, I wish I could recreate that. So I've been thinking about doing that and maybe having some type of like hook to it, that it's not just, stand up or not just solely women, but maybe women focused. So I don't know. That's a good question. There's a lot of shows now that are very gimmicky where they're like, oh, a comedian does a set, but then we throw balloons at them. You know what I mean? Or, oh, a comedian comes up and they have to take a topic out of a bucket and riff on it. And it's like, those are really fun and they're good like writing exercises. But sometimes I kind of feel like, we're all just doing the same thing. We're all just trying to make like a fun show to sell tickets. And that's just what it is.
Right.
But yeah. So I have an article today that I sent you, Anissa.
Yes.
And there are a lot of articles I get because of Google alerts. I don't know if you people know this, but you can set up a Google alert where anytime a news article comes out with the phrase you put in, it will email you literally every day. And I put in body positivity. And this article showed up under that alert. And I really want to talk about it because it's very opinionated. And it is from the perspective of a young Gen Z woman, or I'm assuming Gen Z, maybe like young millennial. She looks, around my age. And I just think that it has so much to do with this podcast. So I want to get into it. This is an article I found on unheard.com. And that's UNHERD, unheard, as in like, herd mentality. And the article is called Body Positive Gen Z Undergoes Record Cosmetic Surgeries, which is a very, very interesting title, right?
Yeah.
And so I looked at this website and it's a pretty decent news website. Their mission on their about page says, "We try to give a platform to the overlooked, the downtrodden, and the traduced, and to people and places that the world has chosen to forget. We have no allegiance to any political party or tradition. Our writers often disagree with each other." our approaches to test and retest assumptions, make people think again. So the website itself has articles, I think, from all kinds of like opinions, perspectives, backgrounds. And their whole thing is that they're trying to like break herd mentality. They're trying to just give objective news and then also have opinionated pieces. So it's really interesting. But this article in particular is pretty short, but it's by, I want to get her name right. It's by Kristina Murkett. And I checked her out. She's a super awesome freelance writer. She writes for all kinds of news outlets. And she's also an English teacher, which I think is pretty cool. And I did look at her face because I wanted to see what she looked. Part of me was like, if a fucking boomer wrote this, I swear to God. Yeah. But she is part of, I'm assuming, Gen Z, or at least a zillennial like myself. And so first impressions on the title, I'm like, okay, Gen Z's getting a record amount of cosmetic surgeries because more and more cosmetic surgeries are available now. But also saying body positive Gen Z is doing it is kind of setting us up for, okay, maybe this author thinks that Gen Z are hypocrites. So this was published June 29th of this year, 2024. And the first little paragraph says, something strange is going on with Gen Z, the generation that preaches body confidence, love yourself mantras, and not conforming to any systems of oppression is also, ironically, electing to have cosmetic surgery in record numbers. And then there is a little piece of data that says, new data from the American Society of Plastic Surgeons annual report has revealed that more people in the U.S. are getting cosmetic surgery than ever before, with 75% of facial plastic surgeons reporting a spike in demand from clients under 30. And then it goes on to say, as well as growing demand for minimally invasive procedures or quote unquote tweakments from Gen Z women and girls. And then this is really, this is a stat that kind of shocked me. In 2003, it says there was also a 9% increase year on year in labiaplasties and an 8% increase in boob jobs. Anissa, do you know what a labiaplasty is?
I actually didn't before I read this article.
Yeah, so it's a procedure where they basically cut your labia.
Yeah.
Google says labiaplasty is a cosmetic genital plastic surgery procedure that reshapes or shortens the labia minora and labia majora, the folds of skin on the vulva. And I'm crossing my legs so tight right now just thinking about that.
That sounds so painful.
Yeah. And this article talks more about the tweakments and kind of Botox and stuff, but I thought that piece was really interesting because the author goes on to say that this is likely because of a growing consumption of porn, which also has an impact on male expectations of female bodies. And one study found that men aged 18 to 24 were 3 times more likely to find only small labia attractive than other age groups. And almost half said they preferred pubic hair completely shaved. Oof, that's like heavy, dude.
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of porn, but when I have seen it, I have recognized that a lot where it's like these are these beautiful women, they're doing their thing, they're doing their job, but they do always look very similar. They're usually relatively thin unless you're looking for a specific type of porn or whatever. And they have pretty tight little small areas, you know what I mean? And everything, they look like they were lasered off their whole, even their arms, their knees, like there's no hair on their body except their eyebrows and their actual head of hair. And so just off that first part of the article, Anissa, what is like your initial reaction as a Gen Zer?
Okay, so I know you said how she might be a little bit on the younger side, but I'm not gonna lie, when I read this, I thought she was a little bit of like either, well, I don't know, I don't want this to like be I don't want to say this and have it being like a negative connotation, but I do think she is more leaning towards like a millennial.
Yeah, I think I love how you're like, I don't want to call her a millennial. It's so negative.
I know. I don't want it to be like a bad thing because I don't like it when age is a bad thing.
I know,
you know what
right?
I mean? But there's like this certain mindset that some millennials have where it's like a little judgmental.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the vibes I'm getting from this article just a little bit.
Same, yeah.
Like I know that a lot of Gen Z people, at least like people I know, have gotten a lot of things done.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that has something more to do with like women taking back their bodies rather than not looking a certain beauty standard.
Right.
And I think that's like especially this generation right now. Like I could not say the same when I was younger. And and like Kylie Jenner was under fire because she got lip injections. Like that, I think back to that time and I'm like, that's so crazy. Because right now it's like, oh my God, you got lip injections?
Yeah, it's like, girl,
oh my God,
what?
they look so good. Are you kidding me? And I think this calls back a lot to what you said with Jocelyn on Jocelyn's episode.
Yes, I literally was thinking that too. I'm like, God, this has everything to do with episode 2.
Yeah, and because it's like, it's one thing to have plastic surgery, but if you're out and you're comfortable about it, that's like so body positive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But if you're hiding it, then
it feels a little different. And there's
Yeah.
so much nuance to this conversation, which I want to recognize because again, this podcast isn't about telling people how they should feel. It's more just seeing all the different perspectives and like how nuanced they are. Because I agree, like when I first read this article, immediately I was like, ooh, this sounds like a woman hater. And then I realized it was a woman. And then I was like, okay, well, let me like listen, like, let me read this and try to have an objective opinion. And I do see what she's saying. We'll get into the next part of the article. It's really short, but just right off the top, the stats are pretty astounding. Especially considering that part of like the labiaplasties and the boob jobs, because those are very specific plastic surgeries that I wonder, like, at what point does that feel like something that would be really important to you, you know? And I think, unfortunately, I could be wrong. I think, unfortunately, there are a lot of girls who get told by guys that their private parts aren't, like, nice, or they're not shaped well, or they're not whatever. Like, I've never had a guy say that to me, but there are times when I'm like, one side's a little
like
longer
scary.
than the other. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't want to look down there.
It's
but
scary.
Yeah, but it is interesting. I remember, God, there used to be a plastic surgery show, and it was before like Botched came out. And it was like, maybe it was on like TLC. And I remember this girl got a labiaplasty, and it was like 2009. It was like not the time that people were doing this. And I will never forget the image of them doing the surgery, and everything's blurred out, but then they lay on the exam table the pieces of skin they cut off, and the male surgeon is like, yeah, it's a good thing she got these off. These were pretty large for someone her size. And she was like a thin woman, and I'll never forget that, because now I understand like what the surgery is and why people are doing it, whereas back then I think I was like maybe in middle school watching this show on TLC, watching a surgeon just take someone's labia off, being like, yeah, it's a good thing she got rid of that shit. That's so fucking weird.
No, I think it is. But I think also a lot of medical procedures, at least right now, or medical procedures, I mean like plastic surgery, have a lot to do with medical issues.
For sure.
So it's like, you know, people who get boob jobs might do like a boob reduction. You know, and I think that does count for the same statistic, because it is technically a boob job.
I wonder if that's, or there's women who get reconstruction because of like a double mastectomy, or even a single mastectomy. Like there are plenty of women that get their boobs done because maybe they've lost a ton of weight and their boob, because remember Jocelyn talked about that. Like she knows that at one point she's going to want to get her boobs done because your boobs kind of deflate when you lose a bunch of weight. So the next part of this article is kind of where it gets into the nitty gritty of it. So the author kind of goes into how like these procedures are a little more affordable. They're no longer something that only people in Hollywood do. And a lot of Gen Zers are considering them like a form of self-care. And then she goes on to say, the mainstreaming of plastic surgery has also come from greater transparency about who has had what done. And I think that's a really good point, because I think maybe 10 years ago, it was kind of that idea of like, if you've had something done, never admit it, never go online, never go on to the press and say you've done it. Just pretend like you have a really good skincare routine. And she goes on to say, but now most Gen Z influencers shout about their alterations from the digital rooftops. A study found that only 24% of baby boomers have seen any cosmetic surgeries addressed on their social media in the last year, compared to 66% of Gen Z users. Do you feel like you see stuff like that on your like TikTok or Instagram? I guess it depends on your algorithm too.
It does, but I think a lot of the influencers I watch are open about it.
Yeah.
You know, like when I watch Tana and Brooke, they're like really open about their plastic surgery.
Right.
Like now. I remember when they used to not be.
Oh,
but like
really?
now they are. Because it's just like the trend to be more relatable, to like be more open with your followers.
I think authenticity has like taken over a lot of conversations. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. Because I like when Jocelyn and I were talking about this on episode 2, she said, I think the only correct way to do plastic surgery is to be 100% open about it. And I know that a lot of people feel as though, well, if it's, you know, it's your body, it's your choice, it's your business. And I think there's both sides to everything. It's like, yes, you are totally allowed to do whatever you want and not talk about it. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of people who are in the spotlight who get plastic surgery aren't honest about it. And that creates an issue because it's like, well, you're kind of like using your body to sell your products, but you're acting as if your body isn't augmented in any way. So how can people who are buying your products ever really feel like they're getting a genuine like purchasing experience when they know like, I'm not going to look like that in that girl's underwear. Like, of course she looks like that. She's had a BBL and all this stuff. And this is where she goes into kind of like, like straddle Gen Z and be like choking them out. She goes, what's surprising is how at odds this is with other Gen Z values. The rules are be both confident in and ashamed of your body, love yourself and hate yourself, accept yourself the way you are, but here are all the ways you should change. There's no room for body neutrality. Long gone are the days when young women could make peace with their imperfections. Instead, Gen Z women and girls watch as a pageant of young, chirpy content creators sell them a stream of positive messages according to which getting work done is empowering, your choice, and a way to feel confident again. And all of these words, the positive, your choice, confident again, are quoted, which I find so passive aggressive.
Yeah, I know.
Which I understand she's getting her point across. So like good for her for doing this. She finishes this paragraph by saying, we all know the duplicitous language, yet in every video, these influencers appear more tucked, more augmented, more symmetrical, more filtered, therefore peddling the very insecurities they appear to dismiss. Once you act on one insecurity, the slippery slope beckons.
This is where it lost me a little bit.
Yeah. I will say, objectively, beautiful writing. She's a great writer.
I think so.
Like, like killing it. But yeah, tell me your thoughts on this.
I mean, I think just personally, I sort of disagree with the whole thing because the part where it's like the rules are be both confident in and ashamed of your body, love yourself and hate yourself, that part, I think it's sort of, I don't know, because I feel like the plastic surgery now is being used as a way to like, self-care, basically. So it's like, I don't know. I think everyone should care about self-care.
Yeah.
And as long as, you know, it's not something so, I guess, abused, you know, because I mean, there are some people who do abuse plastic surgery.
For sure.
And it might look a little unnatural at some point, but I feel like that's just up to the person. I honestly don't think plastic surgery has something to do with insecurities anymore. I think it's more just like, you know, a way of women again taking back their bodies after after such a long period of not being able to do whatever like they wanted to do for the sake of like happiness. I guess it could be a point in like not having a lot of confidence, which is totally fine, but I think that's up to the person, not to anyone else.
My take on this is that I understand what she's saying about like the rules, because I think if you are chronically online, or even if you're online like a few hours a day, it can get very monotonous, where you're constantly, depending on your algorithm, if you're consuming this type of content that is kind of making you feel like, okay, everyone else is, getting Botox and filler, and this girl is eating all protein, and this girl's working out every day. And it's like, what am I supposed to do? But I do think that there's a good point that she makes about there's no room for body neutrality, which is also one of those terms that I think triggers people, because body neutrality is literally just that. It's like just being neutral about your body and not feeling particularly good about it, not feeling particularly bad about it. And that's something that we actually touched on with Hannah Jones in episode 4, where she kind of says, body positivity has turned into this thing where it's like, everything is beautiful. Everything is beautiful. And she's like, sometimes it's not about beautiful. Sometimes it's just about like being alive. And I agree with that. I think there could be more body neutrality, but I also don't think that body positivity is one, it's not one perspective. It's many perspectives. For some people, being body positive is accepting the way they are because of what they've gone through. Like for me personally, I have an eating disorder. I'm going through recovery. Altering my body right now would not be smart because I'm going through this change of trying to figure out how to eat, how to maintain a normal schedule, how to work out and not freak out. You know what I mean? Like, so for someone like me, that doesn't really make sense. Whereas for someone else who maybe they don't have issues with eating or their weight, and maybe they're just like, you know what? I've had a crooked nose my whole life. Everyone's always made fun of my nose. I'm an adult now. I have the money. I have the time. I have the, mental stability. I'm going to get a rhinoplasty. And then they fucking feel great afterwards. Yeah. And I'm like, what's wrong with that?
And sometimes people get rhinoplasties because they can't breathe. Like,
also that.
Like, it's like, everyone has a reason for it.
And people get Botox for migraines.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. I'm actually considering that because I get such bad migraines. So
oh, like, really?
Maybe that's the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also really want to get a boob reduction. It's like...
oh my God. I dream about that all the time.
Because I don't know, I just feel like for my body, they're like a little bit on the big-ish side, and it hurts my back.
Yeah.
Like, and I already have really bad back problems.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even imagine like what you have to go through or what other girls have to go through.
I'm wearing like a tight ass sports bra right now, and I have like crazy. A uniboob football going on. It's insane, but
I just think there's always a reason for plastic surgery, and I think that's like not our business to decide who should and shouldn't.
Oh, absolutely. So. And it's definitely up to every person. It's up to like what you want to do. I think at the end of the day, plastic surgery is something that in reality, it's available now. It's available to everyone. It's no longer this secret thing. Everyone knows what kind of surgery you can get. A lot of people are really open about it. And whether or not someone gets it isn't really like, it doesn't like showcase that they're a bad person or a good person if they get it or not. So the end of this article says it's a lose-lose situation. Members of Gen Z are told to feel empowered to do what they want with their looks, but at the same time, it's not empowering to feel the need to conform to conventional beauty standards. The beauty industry peddles the illusion of control while simultaneously finding new ways to make women feel self-conscious about their appearance. It is the hypocrisy which has led to a situation in which we have a generation that seemingly wants inclusivity, self-acceptance, diversity, and authenticity, but whose members also want to constantly alter themselves in the name of bodily autonomy. They may justify to themselves that the work they are having done is subtle, but there is nothing subtle about what is going on here. The writing is so good that I'm like having a hard time disagreeing with her. I'm like, go off, Kristina. This sentence really stuck out to me. Whose members want to constantly alter themselves in the name of bodily autonomy. That is a really specific thing to touch on, because bodily autonomy at the end of the day is what all of this stuff is about, right? The way that you treat your body, the way that you show your body, the way that you represent yourself through your body is your choice. And that's kind of the whole point. Like my body, my jokes, right? It's like I show my body the way I want to because it's my decision, and other people don't have a say in that. So same thing with this, where it's like, if someone wants to get something done because it'll make them feel better or they like the way it looks, is it really them conforming to beauty standards, or is it them owning their power and saying, you know what, I like this, I'm going to do it, I don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. I'm sure there are cases of women, and obviously we've seen this play out in the media, there are cases of women who do it because they want to be accepted or because they feel the need to do it. I don't know if this is a good example, but I feel like Khloe Kardashian might be one of those people where, I don't know her, don't come for me, this is just my perspective as a person. Like, it seems as though when their journey started, the Kardashians, I watched every season of their show up until like the last few, but she was very like, you know what, this is what I look like, this is what I weigh, I don't give a fuck. She was the sister that was like the realest, most authentic, did not give a fuck. And then as their fame progressed and as their platform widened, I noticed, and I think a lot of people saw, that Khloe really fell into that trap of like, okay, well, my sisters look this way, I don't really look the way that they do, I'm built very different, I need to do this. And now she looks way different than she did years ago. And that is her body and that's her choice and she's allowed to do that. But it's like, well, you know, you have this platform, you're a role model for a lot of young girls. At what point is it like, you got to be honest about it versus it's your business? Right. And it's such a nuanced thing.
I think that's sort of where the issue falls with the Kardashians, because if Khloe was more open about being like, yeah, I got plastic surgery because I wanted to look this way. Like, I feel so much better in my body because now, like, I did what I wanted to do for the longest time. But unfortunately, I don't think she was like that. Yeah. At least not to what I know, to, like, what I know about the Kardashians, to the extent I know about the Kardashians. Yeah. But, I don't know, it's just, if she was more honest about it,
I feel like people would be like, go off, queen. Yeah. I feel like if her or Kylie or any of them like went on Instagram Live and they were like, look, it's been 10 years, let's get into it, I'm doing a tell-all, and they're like, I've done this, I did this, in 2006 I did that, I would be like, fuck yeah, dude, finally.
Exactly. That'd be like an empowering moment to like, you know what, I am a woman, I've done these things, let's freaking talk about it. You know, that's so empowering for them, but also for like other people to hear. But recently Kylie was like sort of under controversy because she was crying about how,
I saw this. Did you see this on TikTok?
Yeah. Basically just crying about how she's been bullied her whole life for like looking a certain way. Right. But people just can't feel bad for her because she created this insane beauty standard that not a lot of people are able to achieve. And so like if you were honest about your plastic surgery and like stuff like that, then I think the conversation would have been a lot different.
And obviously, like, we don't know what their lives are like. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like to have that much money. I can't even possibly understand, but like, the times have changed. We grew up in an era where, you know, People magazine was constantly telling us, look at Jessica Simpson. She's so fat. And she was like a size 4. You know what I mean? And like, we were constantly told, like the cover of my Thinspiration journal with all those magazine clippings, get a flatter tummy by this afternoon. What? Like, that's not possible. So I can understand where maybe it's hard for them now that they've been in the spotlight for so long to get to a point where they're like, okay, can I even talk about this? Like, is this even worth it, or is their kingdom gonna crumble? I don't know, but I do think if you're gonna be selling beauty products and specifically shapewear, that you should be like, this is what I did. Because Kim doesn't need shapewear, you know what I mean? Like, she could wear a plastic bag and people would be like, wow, oh my god, slay. Like, it's not. So I have a problem with that. That could be a whole episode in and of itself. But I want to move on because there are a lot of comments.
Oh my gosh!
On this article, and there's 28 comments, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when I read them, you'll be like, wow, that's fucking crazy. So one of my favorite ones that just starts off right off the bat is by someone named Right Wing Hippie. And they say, if I ever got plastic surgery, I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror anymore. And then a bunch of people reply and are like, why? Like, what do you say? And they'd never reply. So they didn't have a good comeback. Yeah. And then this guy named Danny D says, So these people don't believe in the delusions they try to force on others. Color me surprised. Maybe now Dove can stop making those repulsive advertising campaigns. Have you seen all the real beauty Dove campaigns? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that's just such an interesting brand.
Yeah, they were kind of the first. Dove has come under a lot of controversy because they've also done some like subtly racist kind of campaigns.
I think so.
And they were kind of the first, I think, the first brand to come out with like plus size models, people in their commercials that weren't just like a 00. And it was always, you know, they use the soap and they lather up and whatever. But I remember that was really controversial because people were like, this isn't real beauty. This is fat and that you're fat. And so that's probably what he's like talking about. This is another good one from William Brand. Soon, real women will be competing with AI-driven sex robots. The robot is both perfect in bed and body and even does a better job as a maid and cook. Population will decline as men abandon women. At least the robot can take care of its owner in its old age. Oh my God. If you don't get pussy, just say that. You know what I mean? Like the people, I hate the men that are like, one day I'm going to invent the perfect woman and she's going to be a robot. And I'm like, so you're admitting that you can't talk to real women? Yeah. That's kind of rough.
And also like men will cease to exist if you're not.
Yeah. Like you can't, like a sex robot like, can't give birth.
Yeah. I don't know what you want.
So stupid. And then another person was like, another person said something about like, funny that you think that would happen like to that gender and not the other way around where women replace men with sex robots, which I'm like, yeah, that's a little more likely. That was a long thread. Santiago Exilio says, I think this is indicative of widespread collective mental illness. The long-term effects of this are going to be horrendous because no one yet knows the potential long-run health implications of injecting poison into one's body, injecting fillers, inserting silicone, injecting subdermal inks, and so forth. However, on the last one, a recent study suggests that having a tattoo increases the risk of getting lymph cancer by 20%. Why on earth would someone do that? Plus, they look awful. That's a lot of effort to write that, man.
I know, like, what part are you worried about? You know, so it's like, A, mental illness. B, health implications. C, tattoo increases the risk of.
Yeah. It just sounds like he's against any type of individualism at all.
Crazy.
Widespread collective mental illness is a very funny way to say people becoming more conscious and empowered.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Isn't that so weird?
Also, I have this gripe with older people saying that Gen Z and millennials are like the problem because all of us have ADHD and mental illness, because they never take into account the fact that we were raised with the internet. We were raised in a post 9/11 world. We were raised in such a specific era that it's like, yeah, don't you think it makes sense that we're all a little fucked up? Like I had a Facebook page when I was 14 years old, and I had one of those anonymous message boards where people could literally say whatever they want about me.
Yeah.
I forget what those were called, but like, yeah, don't you think that maybe it makes sense that we have ADHD? We're always watching 6-second videos. It's so weird.
Yeah. And that's just something they can't comprehend.
Yeah, because they're like, well, back in my day, my mom would leave me in the house for 16 hours. I had to fend for myself. And it's like, that's called abuse. Yeah. That doesn't make you a better person.
Also, back in the day, your college was like $5 and you could get a burger for 25 cents. So,
oh my God, that's a perfect segue into this comment. This guy, John Riordan, goes, this is the same generation that's furious because they can't afford houses. How big is this trend? Perhaps it's still only something wealthy people do. And then someone replies, Lindsay S. replies and says, that's because their priorities are confused and adulting is hard. And can't they just be given houses? Oh my God.
So that makes me question, like, is their audience like older people, I guess?
Yeah, it's
like all of these people are.
I know. Well, also, if you think about it, what kind of people are commenting on an article on a website? You know what I mean? What kind of people are in the comment sections of a fucking, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like people that comment on things on like Facebook, the New York Times website, like these kind of more traditional media outlets are always like Gen X baby boomer type people. Whereas the people commenting on like Instagram and TikTok are like millennials and Gen Z.
Right.
They're like, we'll stay in our lane.
Yeah.
And then was there one more that I thought was like so insane? Oh, this guy says, it's all very simple. Both the procedures and the ideology are equally hollow fashion. The fact they are incongruous means nothing to the status mongers. Also, despite the 6% stat, this is all affects men too. Just think of who gets these women, who keeps them, and who gets thrown over. Ugh. He's like upset that there's a stat that like some men are getting it too. And he's like, it affects men too. Like, yeah, she said that. She doesn't, I like it because the author doesn't say anything specifically about like women, except for she mentions one influencer that is a woman, but she refers to Gen Z as Gen Z, like as a generation. She's not saying like female Gen Zers. So this guy felt left out. Ugh,
as they always do.
Yeah. But I thought that article was really interesting because it kind of just is another perspective on everything we talk about on this podcast, right? Like you can be body confident, you can be body positive and get plastic surgery. You can also think that those things aren't part of body positivity, and that's okay. As long as you're like letting people live the way they live. The photo that's used on this article too is like this beautiful this beautiful woman with a full face of makeup laying down, and there's like a pair of gloves that are like about to inject something in her face. And then the caption of the photo says, "The body confidence mantras aren't working for Gen Z." Nice.
Yeah. The standard is weird because it's like, oh, you shouldn't wear makeup, blah, blah, blah. You look so much better without makeup, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, we can't have a win.
We can't win at all. We can't win at all. And that's honestly just, I hate to say it, but it's just like the way it is now. And that's why you just got to do what you want to do, because people are always going to try to tell you what to do. And people are always going to say, you should do this, or you shouldn't do that, or you should live this way, or don't talk about that. And it's like, well, we're all going to die. I don't know. I think about that a lot. This is maybe a really morbid thing to say, but when I think of people getting plastic surgery or tattoos or piercings or dyeing their hair, I'm like, this shit is so temporary. Like, we're all gonna die when we're 80, 90, however many years old. Like, and all those things that you did to your body you're not gonna take them with you. So who cares?
Yeah.
Get a tattoo. Yeah. Pierce your butt cheeks. Right. No one cares.
And people always take out lip injections after a little bit, or like
they take dissolve.
They take out their implants. Like, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
why
like
do you
not
care?
that serious.
It really is not that serious.
Yeah.
Be for real.
So I want to end on a more positive note because that was kind of heavy. So I have with me my very first joke book that I ever wrote in 2020. So I've been doing comedy for 4 years now. And that's a very short amount of time in terms of like the comedy world. But only recently did I start doing jokes about my body on stage and online. And I wanted to look back on my old material and see if there were any types of like seedlings that were starting about this type of material. And there was. And I have to read some of it because it is incredibly wild. So I titled the page "Being Curvy," and I tried to just write things that I thought were like funny or relatable. And I wrote, "Guys, get you a curvy girl. We will never make you feel guilty for eating. You want to go on a date to the Cheesecake Factory? I own a dress from the maternity section. I'm about it." What? Can you imagine if I went on stage and said that now? Oh my God, the people would be like, did we pay $20 to fucking sit here? And then there's another one that says, this one was about my boobs. I used to write about my boobs a lot. And I wrote, "My body developed very early on. I had C cups when I was in 4th grade and they sprouted out of nowhere. It was like my boobs were inside of me being held captive. I'm going to make every grown man uncomfortable at my dance recital." What? Morgan, what is happening? And then I wrote, "They did make men uncomfortable. I was 10 years old wearing a training bra when I should have been wearing a straitjacket to hold the suckers in." You may not like it, but that's grade A comedy right there. And then I have all these bits about like, I hate buying swimsuits nowadays because the trend is less is more. The less fabric on your body, the more you have to shave. And then I say, Americans have no sense of what sizing is. An extra large swimsuit is made for a size 8, but when you order an extra large drink, you get a trash can size Dr. Pepper. This was when I was not on ADHD medication yet. So I was clearly not doing very well. This one was my favorite. This is the reason why I wanted to bring this on. This joke is so embarrassing. So I say, I'm really good at telling time based on the sun's position, especially when I'm laying down at the beach. When the shadow from my boobs reaches my crotch, I know it's happy hour. Who the fuck did I say this at an open mic? I said this at an open mic in Florida. I guarantee it. And people were like, this girl's going places. Like that is just so embarrassing. And then another joke I wrote was, it's scary being a curvy woman. Men think that just because it's out there, it means they can grab it. But this isn't the produce section at Walmart. This is the claw machine at the arcade. You got to pay up to cop a feel, and even then it might slip out of your hand. That's enough of that. That's enough of that.
That was a good one.
It's funny because I look back on old material and I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And then there's other ones that I'm like, it's as bad as I thought. It was absolutely as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
Oof.
That's okay. It's called growth.
It's called growth. Grow through what you go through. Mm-hmm. I have been forgetting to end every episode with an affirmation. I'm so sorry. No one cares, but I want to end every episode with an affirmation. I do it with all my guests, and I need to remember to do it myself. So I found this one in my notes app in my phone because sometimes I randomly write down affirmations. I wrote this down a year ago, and I really like it. It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. I think that's pretty profound.
That is profound.
It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. So just think that you're not unsuccessful, and then you'll be successful. Ooh, double negative. All right, people. That's it for this episode. Tune in every other 2 weeks. I don't know when this comes out. Bi-weekly. Watch on YouTube. Rate on Spotify. Talk to us. And go forth and slay.
Say hi.
Yeah.
Say bye.
Say bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to My Body, My Jokes. Please be advised that the information provided in this podcast is for general discussion purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always, always, always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare professional with any concerns you might have regarding the topics discussed in today's episode. Also, if you or someone you know is struggling with an eating disorder, please call the National Eating Disorders Association helpline at 1-800-931-2237. Bye.